Pokpok, Alimpako. Iya, 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 dum 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 Piko, malala, Alimpako, piko. Pokpok, Alimpako, pok. Alimpako, piko, malalago, isidaling. Pokpok, Alimpako, pok. Alimpako, piko, malalago, isidaling. Daon si boro-boro, bukal ka sa isa, malalago, isidaling, malala. Pokpok, Alimpako, pok. Alimpako, piko, malala, Alimpako, piko. Pokpok, Alimpako, pok. Alimpako, piko, malala, Alimpako, piko. Pokpok, Alimpako, pok. Alimpako, piko, ma. Alimpako, piko, malalago, isidaling. Daon si boro-boro, bukal ka sa isa. Pok, Alimpako, 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 Alimpako. Pokpok, Alimpako.
Good morning, everyone. So, I would like to say thank you first for coming here to listen to us. And I'd like to extend thanks, of course, to that wonderful performance by the Philippine Madrigal singers. That song was Pokpok, Alimpako by Francisco Feliciano. So that's wonderful. But what we're here for today, I'm very excited about. My name is Dean Francis Alfar. I'm the chair of the Filipino Critics Circle, and it is my privilege to introduce our speaker this morning. National Artist for Literature, poet Rio Alma, or Virgilio Almario, through his lifetime dedication to poetry, has helped shape a nation's identity, bring about social change, preserve its heritage, and build communities for its future. He is a poet, literary historian, and critic, and he has revived and reinvented traditional Filipino poetic forms, even as he championed modernist poetics. In 34 years, he has published 12 books of poetry, which include the seminal Maquinacion and Peregrinacion, and the landmark trilogy Doktrinang Anak Pawis, Mga Retrato at Recuerdo, and Muli sa Kandungan ng Lupa. Many Filipino writers have come under his wing. In literary workshops, he has founded the Galian sa Arte and at Tula, which is GAT, Lira, and he galvanizes member writers as chairman emeritus of the Union ng Manunulat sa Pilipinas. And he was my colleague in the Manila Critics Circle. Yeah, big boss ko yan. But more than anything else, what he has accomplished is that he has put a strong face presenting the Filipino writer and determinedly wielding his pen against untruth, hypocrisy, injustice, and many, many other things. Ladies and gentlemen, our national artist for literature in the Philippines, Virgilio Almario.
Thank you, Dean. Good morning, everybody. Many years ago, in October 1988, I attended the conference of Operation Writers in Erlangen, Germany. It was a big conference and, as expected, noisy. Delegates argued in French and Portuguese and English and in German about any political issue in our world. They delivered long lectures on feminism, racial discrimination, apartheid, etc., and sounded very eloquent in their former colonial masters' languages. When I was given little space to talk, I delivered the first statement on literature for an international audience. And I felt I was very small voice and too weak to be heard by my fellow delegates. And this precisely was my message. I told them that great literatures must have originated from around the four great rivers, the Nile, the Tigris, Euphrates, the Ganges, and the great Yangtze. But they must realize that there are other small rivers in the world. Even brooks come from different springs, and these springs may contribute fresh waters, the ancient and much popularized and overutilized great rivers of the world. So I advise my fellow delegates to be interested in literatures coming from little brooks and small rivers, because these literatures may contain and bring in new and fresh ideas. Then I read samples of my poetry with German translations. Unfortunately, I never heard from my fellow delegates at Erlangen after that autumn. I guess they were not interested in what I read to them, or did not give them good examples of fresh waters from the rivers of the Philippines. Ladies and gentlemen, today I'm an official member of the honored guest country delegation in the Frankfurt International Book Fair. Not only that, I was introduced as a national artist for literature in the Philippines, so that perhaps whatever I may say today may get more interest. I would like to reiterate my statement in Erlangen to explain our interest in participating in this great book exhibits. But I am not limiting my introduction to my own poetry. I would like to encourage you to look into the fresh waters our rivers offer, to read the books of poetry, stories, plays, and histories from the Philippines, and appreciate the Filipino genius which produced the current literatures in my country. You will find that some of our books contain topics and issues which you are familiar with. We are, after all, a part of the global village and very much affected by the politics and cultures of Europe. But I must stress at this point that our cultural history is not about Spanish colonialism and American expansionism. We are proud to carry an older Asian civilization due to the earlier trading contacts and migrations from China, Japan, India, and other Upper Asian countries. These have enriched our literatures and cultures with elements not known to the West. You know, we suffered a lot when we succumbed to too much modernism during the American period. We were so Americanized that our educated poets of the 20th century were more appreciated by small circles in the academy. They had lost their privileged status as respected leaders and a spokesperson of their communities. Thus, since my retirement as a university professor, I myself started a movement to bring back poetry to the hearts of the people, or in Tagalog, ibalik ang tula sa puso ng madla. We hold seminars and workshops for teachers and young poets on poetic traditions and a reorientation on cultural history. We try to commemorate newly published books with public poetry readings. We celebrate the birth or death anniversaries of patriotic poets. In fact, we have a project to make the largest city of our national capital region, Quezon City, a poetry or literary center of the country. We are now in our third year of National Poetry Day, which we hold during the birth anniversary of our great poet of the people in the 20th century, Jose Corazon de Jesus. And we do not intend to limit our efforts to poetry. We want to reclaim whatever we already excelled in our old literatures. We want to start a real cultural revolution, against colonial values, rampant politics of corruption, military abuses, destruction of our natural resources, and blind ideologies which have brought too much misery to our people. In poetry, for example, we have a long tradition of oral poems with unique native characteristics invented by our ancient poets and which we were able to preserve despite the strong cultural influence of Spain for 3 centuries. We are so rich in long narratives, similar to your epic poems, of which more than 50 pieces are already recorded and 2 are enshrined in the UNESCO list of not international heritage. Each of these long narrative poems is chanted for many hours, even days and nights, and contain fantastic details about our Asian heritage and ancient memories of love and life in our archipelago. It is noteworthy that our native intangible heritage is recently being utilized by our writers. There was a time, perhaps because of the great impact of modern American civilization, when our writers drank only the modernist writers of the West. But I think some progressive Western philosophers and literary critics also help create an atmosphere of liberation from Western values. I can cite for myself Gramsci of Italy, Foucault of France, and Nietzsche of Germany, which have served as guide. They serve as guide for our writers to look more intensely inward and locate a more authentic Filipino space for literatures. We are now remolding our literatures according to newly discovered forms and content, and it is not necessarily along Western examples. Many writers at present use the native words for creative forms, like Sugilanon for stories, Pinalaybay for traditional poems. Even the mythological creatures which used to adorn our stories for children are now being used as characters for adult stories and novels. Our pamahiin or superstitious beliefs are being questioned in many ways and in the process are being used to reveal our ancient psychological and anthropological customs and practices. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what we need now is a vigorous program for research on indigenous materials to feed the hunger of our current writers. We also need a well-designed program for translation so that our writings in our languages, page 10 of our active literatures in regional languages, will be available for nationwide readership. Let me go back to poetry and give you examples of old poetic forms which are recently engaging the creative spirits of our young poets. Many of us now believe, like me, there are 2 basic orientations in poetry. One orientation is the riddle. which is very similar to the theory of the familiarization of the Russian formalists. It emphasizes the creative power of observation through an image or an angle, a way of seeing a particular form. A thing which is supposed to be known to everybody becomes strange and unfamiliar. The other orientation is the didactic proverb, which imparts carefully reflected visions of life and the struggles of man to survive. Now we have recovered from our past literatures traces of short poems which employ the virtues of riddles and proverbs. One of them is the tanaga. Tanaga. Tanaga is a very short poem composed of 4 lines in monometer of 7 syllables and in monorhyme. In the 1950s, an old poet happened to read it in an old dictionary and tried to experiment with it. But aside from a few followers, the tanaga did not flourish. It was in the 1980s when a young generation of poets published experimental pieces that tanaga caught fire. A group mounted a contest for tanaga, writing for 1 month using social media. Every week they declared winners, and hundreds sent entries from the country's different regions. Then in my own research, I discovered the Jonah. Jonah is another short poem composed of 3 lines, each in monometer of 7 syllables and in monorhyme. By this time, it should be clear to you that our poetry is syllabic and has a very short meter, most of them in heptasyllabic or octosyllabic meter. Unlike the more favorite now, dodecasyllabic lines, which is only a naturalized meter from the French Alexandrine, which became Alejandrino in Spanish and became popular in the 19th century when it was used by our master poet, Francisco Balagtas. In fact, our ancient poets were so used to the discipline and rigor of 7 or 8 syllables in line that they scorned the 12-syllable as prosa, a corruption of prosa or unpoetic. But Balagtas' magnum opus, written in wonderful 12-syllable lines and made the said naturalized meter a vital part of our poetic tradition in the 20th century. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have very short meters for our long words. Imagine the discipline needed by our poets to express a complete and important thought within 4 or 3 lines. Well, here is an example of a tanaga in our old collection. Nang walang biring ginto, doon na nga nagpalalo. Na magkaginto-ginto, doon na nga sumuko. And the translation is, when young and without any golden flower, it is proud to impress others with its little knowledge. But when it's fully laden with golden grains, it learns to bend down and be humble. I admire this tanaga because this can operate like a bugtong or riddle about rice, and at the same time it was also useful as a proverb for the true wisdom of old age. It is a proverb and at the same time a riddle. On the other hand, the control in Jonah is strictest because the poet has to deliver his message in only 3 lines. And here is an old example. Magkapatid man buo, kundi kapwa suyo, parang pisang malayo. Even brothers or sisters of one parent, there is no love for each other, who treat each other like distant cousins. Kapwa or fellowman was mentioned in the Jonah. I should explain that it is an ancient sociological value which is explained in many of our old poems. A good relationship within a family or a community is the key to unity and progress. Thus, the Jonah says, even brothers or sisters who do not love each other would be like distant cousins in dealing with one another. It is unfortunate that I cannot give you a brief lesson, even a brief lesson about our own rhyming system. We have a system which is operative in many of our native poetics. Our hero Rizal tried to explain it in a lecture in German to the Berlin Ethnological Society. It is authentically different from any rhyming system in the world. Our tanaga and jona could compete with the Japanese haiku and tanka in charm and discipline, but we have yet to study the old samples of these poetic forms, decipher the poetics involved in their creation. Well, now, ladies and gentlemen, our country is relatively young and our culture was still in its developmental stage when the colonial forces of Europe literally stopped its maturation and imposed Western aesthetics and values in our literature. But with our recent aspirations to discover our heritage, and with our young writers' full imaginative efforts to give it more definable shapes and relevant content, I think we can offer fresh waters from Philippine brooks to contribute to the world's great sources of new literatures. We carry to this Frankfurt Book Fair some of our chosen books. I hope the readers of the world will be ready to accept and appreciate our offer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We have time for some questions. We'd love to take a couple of questions. Anybody? I have a question, actually, sir. You mentioned the Tanaga and the Jona, right?
Yes.
Where in the Philippines, geographically speaking, do those two forms originate or come
From the
from?
Tagalog area.
Both of them in the Tagalog,
Tagalog
area?
area, yes.
Okay. If we go down south, are there any more forms, poetic
Short
forms?
Yes, there are.
Short also?
Yes, there are.
So, in general, what you're saying is true that all our native forms,
Have short forms
short forms.
and long narrative forms also.
So, it's really a challenge for the poet to be able to articulate anything, right?
In very short poems, yes.
Yes.
And they are sung.
And they're sung.
Yes, there is a melody for those short poems.
You did not sing your.
Yes, I don't know how to sing it, but they are sung.
So they're actually sung.
Yeah.
Sir, when you say that they're short, so they're only like a number of lines, right? And there's
Four lines.
4 lines, and then specific
lines.
numbers of
Syllables.
syllables, and that's it. So
Yes.
you can't have multiples of those in one long thing.
You can do it, but it's a different form.
It's different altogether. So
Yeah,
it's really just done in one, like the haiku.
Yeah, something like that. But if you have longer one with 7 syllables, you have another form used by the Mangyan.
So it's different altogether.
Altogether, yes. It is called the ambahan in Mangyan.
Okay.
And it's also sung in Mangyan.
It's also sung. So there's
Yeah.
a lot that's sung. So it's really it's very different, right?
Our old poems are sung. All of them are sung.
So when we read
Enchanted.
these, when they're collected in a book, we're missing half of the experience.
Yes, it is. Very much. Although in oral literature, I was still young and I heard some of them, and so I could now relate my experience in the community where I was born, and it is in this experience that I was able to receive the memory of the Jona and the
Yeah.
Dalit and the Tanaga.
That tanaga. So it's chanting, so there's a certain rhythm, right?
Yes.
Is that also in danger of getting lost? Because
It is now lost.
completely?
No, but we are trying to develop it again. That's why we
Okay.
have to research on it.
How can we save something like that? Something that is oral chanted when the practitioners
Don't
vanish
sing.
or go extinct. How?
That is why we have I trained some young poets now to sing it.
Even if you don't sing yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
With my bad voice, I was able to at least preserve the melody in memory.
By memory, you remembered.
Yeah. Would you like me to sing it?
Yes, yes, please. You know, I like putting you on the spot, right?
Noong walang biring ginto, doon na nga nagpalalo na magkaginto-ginto, doon na nga sumuko. That's one melody.
Beautiful. No, and it's very moving to me because I'm primarily a reader. So for me, the lyricism is in the language, and its musicality is only in my imagination, in my mind. But to have it really be meant to be together, right?
That is why we are emphasizing now not only reading poetry but performing poetry, singing it if it is to be sung.
So you have been spearheading for a long time now this movement to return poetry and literature to the hearts of
The people.
the people. What are the resistance points or obstacles that you have faced or continue to face? What makes life difficult or that endeavor difficult?
Well, our problem is the encouragement to be done by the government. Until now, we have very cool reception from the Quezon City bureaucracy.
I will speak to Mayor Joy Belmonte for
Please
you.
do help us. Mayor Belmonte is very eager to have it, but the bureaucracy under her is not. It's additional trouble for them.
It'll work, right?
Yeah.
No, but I can imagine school children chanting, right? And singing these songs because that's how people remember. They
Yes.
speak.
We have tried it in one elementary school,
Yes.
and the children are very happy to learn it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it breaks my heart that there's actually resistance or difficulty. So we should do something about that, okay?
Yes. Please.
Please. Okay. Are there any other questions, please? Yes, yes.
Is tanaga means anything? Because tanaga in Indonesian means power.
Oh, is that so? That's very nice to hear.
But Jonah doesn't mean anything in Indonesian language. I have two questions. My first question is whether the young poet in Philippines, they also are experimenting with the traditional forms. Sometimes they can experiment by having the meters or the lyrics and put it into new songs, new chants, or the other way around. They put new lyrics to an old songs or old chants. But also we not compete, but there is also another form of poetry which is more international in a sense that often used in slam poetry, which is they call it spoken words. Do young poets in Philippines also do that? And is there any effort to experiment spoken poetry, mix it with a more traditional forms? That's my first question. And my second question, actually, I miss a part of your presentation. You say that there are two basic orientation, and I only got the one, which is the
Riddle.
yeah. And what is the second?
Proverb.
Proverbs. Okay. So I have only one question.
Oh, yes. We have many young poets now who are in performing art. That means these young poets, especially by the name of Bimnadera, who is championing the performance poetry. It's now encouraging the singing or performing of any kind of poetry that they have. And they are experimenting also on tanaga. They changed the rhyme instead of monorhyme. They now have 2 rhymes or 3 rhymes in tanaga.
But keeping the form
The form is yes. Oh,
and the brevity, right?
Yes.
By necessity, right?
yeah. They cannot change it
Yeah, because it would not be a tanaga.
tanaga anymore. It could be ambahan on. It can be another form already.
But you're okay with them changing the rhyme structure. It used to be
I'm doing
monorhyme.
it also. Eh.
Huh? You do it also because because you're doing it, therefore it's okay. I see. No,
No,
because that is how poetry grows, right?
Yeah.
That is how you push against things. So,
and it's very difficult to have monorhyme in Filipino.
especially
Yeah.
right? Okay. I hope that answers your question. Okay, we have time for one more. If there's any more. Okay. If there are no more questions, I'd like to thank you so much for your time here, sir, and for telling us about this. I personally got educated, and you do this to me all the time when you don't give me a hat. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Philippines National Artist for Literature, Virgilio Almario, Rio Alma.
Thank you so much.